Oh, I don't know how long he did that. It just killed me. I don't. I wish we'd have had one sitting in there. I was. I thought the same thing. And that was going to be. Almost ready to say that. Well, what are your options? Well, we just keep moving forward, or we seek legal counsel. Ryan said that. He'd like to research how many times they say yes. There's steps. There's steps.
I am calling the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is the time for an invitation for a citizen to schedule a time on the commission agenda for an item not listed. Do we have anyone that would like to put an item on the agenda? There being none, next I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Would anybody first, though, have any additions or subtractions?
Yes, our 9:30 scheduled item has to be postponed until July 24th due to some scheduling conflicts. The Sergeant Pike isn't able to attend today, so we'll do that next month.
So we'll remove item 7B from the agenda and move that to the July 24th meeting at what time? 9:30. At 9:30? Okay. Any other changes to the agenda? Would we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Agenda is approved. As relates to the consent agenda, on the consent agenda, we have approval of minutes, approval of travel and education requests, approval of personnel action notices, and approval of the human services report. Do we have anything to remove from the consent agenda? I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is passed. Moving to routine business, we have approval of claims. Would we have a motion?
Second.
Any discussion on claims? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Actually, I'm sorry, we're going to do a roll call vote on claims. Sorry.
Jensen?
Aye.
Miller? Aye. Krogman?
Aye.
Bartley? Pierce?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving into department head reports. Dick, do you want to start?
Good morning.
Morning.
June 7th, I talked with Scott Bierke about a culvert project on Oslo Township. However, he didn't put together a cost estimate or follow up. So I haven't seen anything as far as this project as to what they are wanting for participation. And then I called Josh Spilde after last meeting and gave him the specifics of what the county is requesting from the township, so he should be here this morning. That will clear that up, hopefully. And we ordered some tie rods from PM Steel in Sioux Falls to get the bridge deck project going on 16. We're a little bit high on water yet, so I haven't visited with Brian from Holloway Construction, but he's anticipating it may not be till closer to fall or in August if it hopefully dries up a little bit. And then I went up to Windsor Township again to verify what my thinking was and opinions on that project. We also had the bid opening last week for the preservation grants, and they came in very well. They're on the agenda for today. We've also had a series of delays and problems. Bo's working on that BMU project right north of the shop. They hit the gas line one day, they hit the electrical line twice, and then yesterday we discovered another three-phase that was knocked out of kilter, so that we didn't have power yesterday if anybody's trying to get a hold of us from 2 to about 5:10. So I think they've got everything replaced, because I think they hit everything that could be possibly hit. Other than the water line, they didn't get that deep, but we were safe there. But yeah, the gas line was kind of scary. And then we've been, Reed Intermill picked up the 20-foot culvert for the Kirby Cemetery project, and I believe that'll be coming up. And also the crew working on shouldering is finished on 5. And we also took the bid recommendation from Banner, and that'll be coming up on the agenda. So that's pretty brief, but there'll be a lot of things on the agenda today. Anybody have any questions? Or in response to yours, Larry, we went down some of the roads in southeastern where they had water, but there's no damage or anything. We'll brush them up. So I think we're looking good there. They had quite a bit of rain, so.
Yeah, they had 5 to 6 inches of rain down by Elkton this morning, so.
Anything else? Thank you, Dick. Sheriff, would you like to be next?
Morning. It's Sheriff's office has been busy, but not any runaways that we can't handle. Elkton had their celebration last week, and things went good over there, so no surprises there. The only real surprise right now is that our drug dog is 8 years old, and I had to take it out of service. Is that it went to be recertified, and of course it's the hottest day last week in the 90s, and the humidity is that it pooped out. So I grounded it. The Attorney General's office has given the county $7,500, to find another dog. And we do have someone that's overseas right now looking for dogs for law enforcement. They're going over and pick 4 dogs out. And I don't know what agencies are going to get them. One might go to the highway. I'm not sure, but so we're going to be without a dog until we get one and get it trained and so forth. So, but it was a hot day, and it was the second day, and he was struggling the first day. Last time he was recertified, he was head of his class, and he just 8 years on a dog, and that's quite a bit. So we bought that dog. Didn't cost us any money either. That was given us. That came from actually Jackson County had purchased that dog through the Attorney General's office, and then when that deputy left, the dog was turned back into the Attorney General's office, which then DCI Director Gort Maker called me and says, "Hey, got a dog for you." And I said, "Well, how much?" And he goes, "Free." So I like free stuff. So, but this one's but again, they put in $7,500 or $7,500 for a dog. So we're gonna be without a dog for a while.
Typically, what do they cost?
around that 75,000 to 95, not 75,000.
100.
7,500 to 95.
Okay. Okay.
I'm just curious as to why the dogs come from overseas.
What's that?
You said they're looking overseas?
Yeah, they're buying these dogs out of country, the Malamutes and those types of things. They're finding out that these breeders overseas breed these dogs special for this type of work. So, yeah, that's where the Highway Patrol is getting all their dogs, is overseas. Most of the dogs in the state are coming from.
Well, the drugs they're taking off of the interstate make them well worth their money.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And the the first drugs that was taken off the interstate, that just before the school year ended, we're pretty sure that was earmarked for this area. So it's not traveling through and going to Omaha or going to Fargo. That was coming to Brookings County. So yeah, I think just by doing that, and going into my next phase here with the jail is, the numbers have been down right now for jail population. Of course, that could change. I always say that could change tomorrow or the next day. We were running 14, 13. Today we have 18 in there. So, the jail numbers that have been down. Of course, just to give you a quick briefing from the first of the year, the month of January where we had 34 per day, February 38 per day, March 34 per day, April 32 per day, May was 29 per day, and so far the month of June it's been 21 per day. So overall, since the first of the year, we're at 32, almost 33 inmates per day, which is a lot. It's probably 10 to 12 less than we were last year at this particular time. So I think some of the again, that can always change, but I think some of the things that help contribute to that is that the 24/7 program maintains this, have a lot of participants on there. That keeps our jail population down. A lot of those ones that are on 24/7 possibly will, more than likely, been in jail serving their time because they violate and then they go in for their sentencing. If they're suspended 10 days or 15 days or 20 days or whatever it is, then they come back in and spend that. So that helps. I think also is that we had some individuals that the judge released and put into drug court. So I think drug court through the state's attorney's office and the court system has helped us take some of that population also. And then the other thing is that we've, the state's attorney's office has also prosecuted some drug dealers, suppliers that have went to prison, our sexual assault individuals. Now they all have been sentenced. We still have one holding that's has to do their pre-sentence investigation and then that person. So I don't have those. So that's helped in the jail also to keep the population down. Again, this can change. This can change tomorrow. It can change tonight. But right now I'm back to 2 correctional officers, which I had 3 before. Anytime I get over 30, I usually like to put the third person on at certain peak times. But I did pull that person, the third person right now. The other thing is I'd like to run something past the commission, and what would really help us is the congestion in the control area, in the booking area, with the 24/7 program. Like right now, I have 149 that's on the program, and there's 45 plus, there's some out-of-county ones. There's 9, so 45 plus 9. They come in twice a day. I have, the UAs are down though. I was in the 60s, now I'm in the 40s, 48. They come in twice a week. Actually, then there's 4 from other counties. So actually, there's 52 that come in twice a week. There's a lot of coming and going in the Sallyport, and of course, when they have to do their UAs, then they have to come all the way in and then go into where I can hold juveniles just temporary, like a holdover. That's where my fingerprint machine is, and the nurse's station, and that ties that room up. what I'd really like to do is if we could go ahead and apply for a building permit for that east side to put in the 24/7 area. Now, I think it's less than 500 square feet. And it would be, it's no higher than the building. And we already got our variance for the east side. And it's basically a bathroom and visitation. And we could go ahead and put the visitation area in there also. The part of the visitation is the software of the equipment is already in the budget. So it's not like we have to come up with budget for do that. I mean, that's what's part of the jail expansion is soft costs. Is that would help us with visitation also, because I only have 2 visitation booths. Only 2 people can visit at one time, and they get a half hour. So put the visitation area in, and along with 24/7, that would be 2 offices. That would get my 24/7 coordinator out of the deputy office, put her in that area, and there's a bathroom in that area also, and when they come in to test, they go into that bathroom area and all that. Now, so it's not a waste of space either, because it's not cells. So if we were forced to move off grounds, if we had to build a jail somewhere else, that area could be used as offices. It's not going to be wasted space. It can be used as offices, because it's not cells. It's just to add on people to come in to visit, go ahead with our with our arraignment equipment, and put them in the cell blocks. That'd be five cell blocks basically right now. If we had to move in the expansion or had to move, that equipment can be moved. But that would really help a lot of the congestion in the control room Sallyport area. So it's just a food for thought. It's no higher than the building. We have our variance. Again, though, we would have to apply through, since we're adjacent to historic, we'd have to go through historic to build that portion on. So.
Marty, you don't use that outdoor recreation area for anything, do you?
In the summertime, we do.
Let them go out.
Yeah, they can go out there in the summertime.
I was thinking we could build in there. Okay.
But Marty, what you're suggesting won't interfere with the expansion.
No, it won't interfere with the expansion. Can you put me up on the screen?
This was the part that we were intending to build first before we started. Is that correct?
Yeah, that would have been one of the areas. Let's see if I can make this work.
Move your microphone, please.
Maybe my pin's not going to work. It's no longer than the length of the building, and it goes to the middle of the building. It's actually where it's not the jail administration offices. It's the length of the present jail right now. It ends right at the end of the building, and that area would be the 24/7 area with its own entrance, and then the same entrance would be used for visitation. In other words, the visitor would come into there, they would sit at a console, and then they would talk to their loved one in the cell block. And so I could have, actually, I think there's going to be, it'll fit 6 or 8 people. Of course, there's only one inmate that can talk at the same time, at one time, because we only have only one video telephone in the cell block. But that would take a lot of pressure off coming into this gate area. Oops, you said move that, didn't you, Larry? I'm sorry. With my window there, that really helps a lot. I mean, that takes a lot of, but there's a lot of congestion in that control area with all these people coming. And then what really gets congested is on the UAs, where they have to come into the building, then we take them around, and then they have to go into the fingerprint room where there's a bathroom there to do their UAs. Where on that addition, we could do everything in that addition. There's kind of 2 office spaces there for the coordinator, and I always eventually figured there would be probably a half-time person with her, to help. which would be funded by the 24/7 program. So that's not that won't be an additional cost as far as wages. That'll come out of the program. So that's what again, it would be no higher than the building. My guess we would match that with the building at the present time, because I said if we do our expansion, we would probably paint or do something with the original sheriff's office to make it match, make it flow and stuff. So, I mean, I guess my main reason right now is just to take that congestion. That would really help us a lot with the congestion. We can handle it, and we've handled it for years, and we can continue to handle it, you know, but it would help with visitation and the 24/7 to go ahead. We got our variance, you know, but again, we'd have to apply to historic for that addition. And it could be used as offices. I mean, it's not going to be hard sells. It's not anything, you know, I think there's always been that misconception that our building's going to go away, and it was obvious at the meeting the other night they don't want us here. I thought was kind of, and maybe you guys don't want to talk about it too much, but, you know, the original, and I sent you guys this, the original, when they made the building historic, second to last paragraph says, or the last paragraph says, the courthouse rests in the middle of the square block. It shares the property with the jail and the sheriff's residence currently under construction. So when that became historic, I believe in 1976, we were under construction of the new jail at that time. And it says it shares the property with us. So we've been here a long time. The feeling I got the other night was that they basically don't want the sheriff's office and the jail next to the courthouse, that, you know, and I guess that's still your decision because you're the county commission and you're in charge of that building. But again, the very next day, you know, 2 deputies were killed on a transport. That was 2 deputies on one. And we transport all the time. I understand that, but I don't have to transport multiple times between court and jail with multiple inmates either. You know, we got criticized because I wanted 2 deputies to transport, you know, so then we cut it back to 1, and there was 2 deputies transporting on 1. And you try to work with historic and everything, but it just appears that they don't want to work with us. So, and that's obvious by the other night. I also sent you today the Attorney General. They were quoting things from an opinion from the Attorney General, and when they made their motion and went in there, you can't rebut anything or ask any questions because they're already made their motion. So I think I don't think we really got a fair shot. So I'll quit on that.
Any questions or comments for the sheriff?
Probably got a comment, but you don't want to tell me. Probably afterwards you'll tell me.
Well, the bottom line is, if they don't let us do it, they're going to be looking at what they have right now, forever.
I think we met a lot of their criteria. You know, we tried to make the building flow and so forth. So, but it really would help on that 24/7 congestion. We could operate a lot smoother. We make it work. We make it work now, and we can continue to make it work, but it would just help us out. So, thank you.
Vicki?
Good morning.
Good morning.
To give you an update on the State Board of Election meeting that went on Monday at 10 o'clock, what they decided was they were going to just require the counties that use e-poll books and vote centers to just have a bound list, a paper list that goes to the polling places. And we had already done that, so that is what they've decided. They are not taking away the vote centers or the e-poll books, but we just have to have this bound list to each one of the vote centers. So if something goes down, they have a paper list. And that is something we were doing in Brookings County, so there's no added to us. But thanks for the letters of support, and Kristen listened to the conference call yesterday, and there were a lot of letters of support across the state. So
So on that issue, if in the worst case scenario where in the future the e-poll books go down and we're using those our list, our voter
Yes.
list, or what we're doing, do we have a plan in place, or did the Secretary of State's office have a plan in place for how one vote center would know if we're using paper, if somebody's already voted or not?
They did talk about that, and what would happen is they would have record of 2 people voting, and it would be something that they would prosecute after the fact. And, they may come up with something in between, but they figure there isn't going to be a big percentage of people that would do that. It wouldn't affect the outcome, but they would have the list to compare, and they would know who did vote twice, and they would prosecute them. So, and there might be something that comes up, but they did talk about that yesterday. So,
Thank you.
and our new employee, we did get hired, and they will be starting July 9th, so we're excited about that. And just working on budget, and you should have received the finance officer's report in your packet. And the general fund surplus analysis was at 38.54%, which last year it was at 53%, but the 5-6 preceding years, it was right in the ballpark. We went anywhere from 30% to 40% in the prior years. So I feel good about where we're at with that general fund surplus analysis. And we also have 4 be it noted items: the auditor's account with the treasurer, the payroll and additives totals, the highway expenditure report, and the register of deeds statement of fees. So any questions on anything in the finance officer's report that was in your packet?
I just had a question about the 304 fund.
Okay.
So when people paid their taxes at the end of April, was there a levy for the detention center in there?
Yes.
And so that was like 38,000, I think was what the balance was in that 304 fund. That's what that was?
Yes, I'd have to look
Okay.
for sure and see what it is, yes. But the total that we levied for was a little over 500,000.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Just one question, Vic. I had a constituent ask me about prepaying taxes, and I'm not exactly sure what the question was, but it as I understood it anyway, it involved some large property owners wanting to prepay some taxes for tax benefits in a current year for 1 year or 2 years out, and that it wouldn't be allowed here in Brookings County, but it's allowed in some other county, and I don't know which one it was, Lincoln or some other place. Is there rules and regulations? We haven't set our levy, we can't figure the tax, or?
Right. We wouldn't know what our levy and what the exact amount is until later in December. So, yes, we would have no way of knowing what the amounts are.
So if they came in later in December, they could prepay?
We do have people prepay. We can't enter it into the system until January, but we do accept the payments in later December, and we tell them it will be gone through right after January, so it will be put into the system. But we do have the actual figures the end of December.
So for their tax purposes, if they wrote the check in December, they're covered?
Right, that is up to them, but yes, we do accept that, but not until we have an actual amount, because then we're sending checks back or we're writing letters for more amounts, but we do have them. Usually it's around Christmas, so.
Okay.
And we always have people that do that.
I guess that's a question for Mr. Breitzman. Are you aware of this particular issue that's coming up locally? Okay.
The taxes have not been billed, at that point in time, and formally probably determined until the bill goes out. So that's a prepayment, and I guess it's the taxpayer's choice as to whether or not that constitutes a tax payment or a deposit against taxes for the next year. I know that there's a desire to pay those ahead of time. And I guess if they know the dollar amount, they're probably on the safe side, but until that dollar amount is determined, that would only be a tax deposit. I agree with the procedure. I mean, the bill's not ready to go out.
Right, and we don't let them prepay it all unless we have the figure. And again, we tell them that it isn't going to actually be ran, or the check isn't going to be cashed until January, because our system can't accept it for the next year until we've turned over the new year.
And I know this is a huge issue on real estate transfers, because all of the Mickey Mouse stuff on those credits for past years, future years, all that stuff. Are there counties that allow prepayment? Is Commissioner Bartley correct on that?
I would have to check on that. It would kind of be a bookkeeping nightmare. We tell, like the title companies and whoever does in closing, that they should keep it in their escrow, and then they can come in and pay it, when we have the figures. It's estimated at that time, but we do not accept it. I can check and see what other counties do.
I'd like to know that. I'd like to know if we're doing it the hard way, because that's our procedure. I always thought we did it that way on real estate transactions because it was required by statute. But if it's not, maybe we should have another conversation about that. But
I'll check into it and let you know.
And then, Vicki, I'm going to interrupt you, and you can come back up when we're done. We had a 9 o'clock. Thank you. We have a 9 o'clock scheduled agenda item with Windsor Township Supervisor Josh Spilde. Mr. Spilde, are you present? Come on up. And why don't you go ahead and tell us what's going on with your project?
We had a township meeting, and we came to the conclusion that we thought it would be financially responsible of the township to go ahead and just ask for, if you guys were comfortable just paying for the culvert, and then we would take the liability on for whatever, for the height and any other liabilities that would be involved with, and do away with the engineering. So we are here today asking if you guys would be interested in buying the culverts, and then we would handle the rest.
And would you clarify for me, is it 3 culverts you want us to buy?
There'll be a total of 5.
5.
2 60-inch 40-foot culverts and 3 54-inch 40-foot culverts.
Any other questions for Mr. Spilde?
Just one question. You say you'd take the responsibility for that in lieu of having engineering study
Yep.
done. Can that be done, and we're rest assured we're not covered? Or they're covered? Is
We
there
have
an
a-
agreement or
we have a
contract
waiver
agreement?
here.
That agreement will cover us?
Yeah, I think they're accepting responsibility.
Okay.
So I think that as a governmental entity, they can do that.
Thank you.
It seems like last time we were here, we were talking about one bridge or thing. We have 2 of them now.
There was 2 last time as well. What had happened is we were asking for just like assistance last time, and then you guys said that you needed to have like an engineer involved. Well, engineering was going to be about $10,000, and what had happened is when we measured these box culverts, we went to True North Steel and says, hey, this is what we have, and then they engineered and told us how many culverts that we needed. And then with today's technology, with the lasers and everything, the contractor assured us that we'd be able to put it to the exact level as what it currently is at. So, I mean, if we'd go with you guys, some engineering company would get an additional $10,000. So we figured, well, we didn't know that there was any reason to spend that.
But I just had in my mind that we were going to be spending about $7,000 to $8,000, and with 5 of them, what are we going to be spending? We're going to be spending
About just over 15.5.
15.
Yeah, and I guess I had in my mind that we had 1 bid in front of us last time for one.
No, we had two estimates last time as well.
Any other questions?
Yes, just a question for Dick. Are you comfortable with no engineering?
Well, I guess with them accepting all responsibility and they went through at least True North, who established the size of the culverts, I feel a lot better than just them deciding what culverts would go in there.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you very much. Do we have a motion on this matter?
I guess I'm still new to this as far as what we've paid in the past and what our obligations are, so I'm going to probably refrain from making the motion at this particular time for the dollar amount. I don't know where we've been before, so if somebody could enlighten me, maybe we'll go a
Well,
little bit farther. Is it we do pay for the entire culverts or part of it, or what's the comfort level?
I don't think we can tell you a before, because this is kind of a new thing that we've been looking at doing. I mean, we started talking about helping the townships, and so this is the beginning of that. So there isn't any past thing other than when we did the same thing that we have set up in our budget for 19 to have money set aside for them. So, and we don't even have this money set aside for them for the 18 budget. But we did say we would buy culverts. And I guess I just wasn't aware it would be this many.
Well, that's kind of where I was. Traditionally, the culvert price was about half of what the total project would cost. And these are large culverts, and I know they're expensive, and that's part of why it's so high, I believe. But you know, I'd be for 50% of the project if we'd put money towards the purchase of the culverts, or however we.
So how much money would you want to put into the purchase of the culverts? If you say $1 a
Can
month,
you-
then
Would you pull up?
Pull these back up.
The total cost of the project is $22,365.76. That's the cost of both projects together. So just shy of $22,400. The cost of the culverts for both projects, $15,521.25.
Well, again, I had in my mind we were going to spend 8,000, is what I had thought. For some reason, it seemed like I only had $78,000. I only had one bid, it seemed like last time. And now we've got two.
What are you looking
And-
for?
Yeah.
The one correction I made on both estimates in longhand was because with these tariffs and all this crazy stuff going on, one, the original estimate was brought about, gosh, it was back in March or something like that. Now in June, that was a verification of what price Josh got at that date. So that's what we would pay.
And
it wasn't a lot of difference, but I just thought I better note that it was a current price.
And my position is, I really want to support the townships in fixing the roads, and I don't have any problem with us paying the cost of the culverts. That would be where I'm at. So if there's some compromise we can make that everybody would get along with, I don't think, Commissioner Krogman, that $8,000 is enough to contribute toward the cost of the culverts. And I think Commissioner Jensen was saying $11,000, I believe.
It's a $3,000 difference, and we told them we'd buy the culverts.
Exactly.
I'm the cheapest, I'll say it, I'm the cheapest commissioner up here. However, we did say that we would purchase the culverts. you know, I just wasn't aware it was this many. And, you know, I think we need to do it, and then don't come back and ask real soon again.
Just one other thing, the prices that you guys have as a county are significantly higher than these prices that we got through our contractor. So, I mean,
Oh, really?
there's a savings there as well for you guys.
What I struggle with is we're almost paying 70% of the cost, and it's not our responsibility. They can come in and ask for help, and it's something we negotiate. And what we've done previously, way back, was we'd pay for the culverts, but that back then the culverts weren't 70% of the cost. They, you know, like Larry had talked about, maybe they're more like 50% of the cost. And I don't have a problem with 50% of the cost, but what I struggle with is setting a precedent that says, okay, we'll pay for culverts, and we end up paying for 70% of their responsibility. And I appreciate them taking, you know, and waiving us and indemnifying us and all that kind of stuff, but, you know, we're talking about doing something for all of the townships, because you know this is going to continue to come back. You know, you guys are the first ones, and I agree with you. I want to help, and I want to be part of it, but I don't want to set a precedent that another township comes in and says, well, you did this for Windsor, why don't you do that for us? And it's, okay, I suppose we can. So I would be more inclined that if we're going to do in our budget process, a process for townships to come in and request, that we have some type of policy, and whether that policy is we'll help 50% if it's needed, deemed needed by our superintendent, and you waive there, I would be more for that when another township comes in and says, well, you did 50%, I'm like, okay, that's fine, we'll do 50%. But when we're paying for almost 70% of the project, I struggle with that a little bit. And I understand the partnership and working with you, and I think 50-50 is a reasonable, you know, expectation. I just worry about if we say we're paying for culverts, where does that cost go in, and where does that continue to go? And on each project, you know, and maybe it is only 50% on one project, but maybe it's 75% on another. And so then the other thing too is if they're asking for these, you know, for wings, for different things, for different stuff to be added to the project that builds the price up. If we do 50%, then we're going to pay for 50% of that, you know. And so I think it can go both ways on the project. You know, not to go back on there. I don't want to go back that we said pay for culverts. I still want to pay and help, but I'm just not sure I want to pay 70% of the project. It's my problem.
Chairman, and I somewhat agree that we need to establish a policy. As you said, this is our first request, and I know in our budget meetings we talked about what type of money we would put away next year on our budget to help with these requests. And I understand that this is, like you say, 70% of the project cost. I don't know where culverts are going to go in the future, but if at 50%, then everybody understands in every township that's our policy, is 50% of the total cost. So if they decide to add the wings and decide to add engineering costs, we're going to pay 50% of that all the way down the line. So I think that establishes a policy that we, Richard, can live with and inspect the bridge and say, yeah, you know, recommend to us that that culvert should be replaced, or those culverts should be replaced, and those estimates and those costs. I think it keeps everybody in line at a percentage policy rather than we're going to pay for culverts because we just don't know what that's going to do. We don't know what 50% is going to do in 2020, 2021, 2022, but at least we have a policy that we can then act on you know, previous year's costs for this, so we're going to go there. So if we did 50% at this particular time, we're at 11,000 something or other, which is close to the 15, you know, 4,000 off, I guess. But I really would like to establish a policy. I know that it works both ways, against us and for us.
I think it needs to be done on a case-by-case basis.
If I just said one thing, and in regards to your policy, if your policy is that you're going to pay for the culverts and the culverts only, I mean, just because this is 70% of the actual project, that has a lot to do with the contractor's location, how close he is to it.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing right now is if our contractor would have padded the bill better on the labor side of it, then you'd be okay with it. You know what I'm saying? So
It's more of a
exactly what
policy
you're
issue,
saying.
though. That's
no,
how
I
we have
understand.
to,
I understand what you're saying. So if you were to, if your guys' policy was, and I'm not telling you what to do, I'm just chiming in a little bit, is if your policy was culverts only, you know, then sometimes it would be less than 50%. This particular time, it's more than 50%. The wings and all that stuff would not be in your policy, you know, if you, there's all the add-ons you can do, but if your policy is the culverts, you know, but if you also need to do a percentage base on each project, I think you guys could potentially get in a mess there also.
If you'd base it on 50% of the estimate instead of the actual bill,
What I would,
is what Josh,
Yeah.
is what he's saying.
The other thing too is you got to pay, if we go 50-50 and you want to pad the numbers to get them bigger so we pay more, you got to pay more too. And so you're not going to want to do that. But what if you decide to look at it and say, okay, we're getting 50% or we're only getting this amount. I don't want to put the wings on because that's only on our cost. But those wings might make the life of that structure better. And if you were going 50-50 on it with us, you might say, you know what, let's put the wings in because we're getting 50% cost from the county, and let's make that structure last longer because it's recommended to do wings rather than, you know, we're going to keep our costs down because anything over the culvert we got to pay. So let's just get it done and don't worry about the extra stuff or the engineering or the wings to make that structure last longer. That's where I'm kind of looking at it, that if you're going to go in and invest in it, we'll invest with you. But you know, if you just do that one side, then it's like, here you go, here's your culvert, do whatever you want. Then what happens, you know, 4 years down the road, when if the wings would have been put in, that culvert's washed out again, are we back here again and saying, we want more culverts? If we'd have done it right, you know, it might have been there. So there's, yeah.
I would like to separate two things if you'd consider this. First of all, we kind of made a commitment, as Commissioner Miller said, for the Windsor Township matter. If we're talking about our ongoing policy for the money we're setting aside in 2019, maybe what we want to look at for our policy is that we will assist in the purchase of culverts up to 50% of the project or $10,000, whichever one is greater, because then it takes care of that problem, and then we know exactly how many townships pretty close that we could help with the money that we're setting aside next year.
Let me ask you, if we change what we're doing, does it change our liability with this waiver? If we turn around and say we're going to cover 50%, does that make us then more liable than just buying a culvert?
You're contributing funding, and yet at the same time, Windsor Township would be offering an indemnification or assumption of liability agreement. So I think providing the funding or purchasing the culverts, it would make no difference when you have that type of agreement.
Doesn't matter. So even if
Would
we
not matter.
provide more funding or provide funding for a different aspect of it, like if we were paying 50% of the installation, doesn't matter?
I don't think it matters from a liability standpoint because you're just writing a check and they're assuming liability responsibility.
And my question on that would be, so if in the worst case scenario, and somebody got hurt on that township road, and there's a lawsuit, county's going to get sued along with the township, no matter what agreement we've signed. And if the township doesn't have a deep enough pocket, what is that indemnification agreement going to do for us?
They would have to collect funds, basically, or levy to the extent that they can over a period of time, probably, to come up with any of the costs, you know, that was assessed to them.
Where are we at on Windsor Township?
I guess my question is, do we want to establish a policy first? We can delay this and establish a policy if we choose to do so.
I don't think we should delay this. We've delayed it long enough.
I'm just suggesting that we're doing a policy on the fly right now by paying for culverts.
And our policy is for 2019. And Windsor really needs an answer from us so they can do the work this summer.
I understand.
And somebody needs to make a motion.
Well, we need to get something done, and nobody wants to make a motion. I guess instead of leaving you hanging without a motion, again, this is where I'm at on it, setting precedent. This is where I'm going forward. I'm going to make a motion that we pay for half the cost of the bills. And I guess I'll leave it at that and wait for discussion.
So your motion, just to be clear, is that Brookings County contribute $11,000 to the cost of the project.
Half of what the bids are, yeah.
You've already got bids, so
Right.
it'd be nice if we had a dollar amount
Yeah,
that
we-
was in the motion.
50% would be $11,182.88.
Okay, that's your motion?
Second.
Okay. Any-
Again, discussion?
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I think we need to do something with them. I know we talked about culverts. In my mind, I had culverts that we were going to spend $7,000, and I might be mistaken on that. I thought it was one bridge and it was those culverts, and that's what I remember us talking about and doing that. I think we want to help. I want to do that. I worry about precedent setting going forward, and so I'm willing to do 50% of the project. Is what I'm willing to do. So, want to help out, want to encourage it, but I'm not willing to pay 70% of the project. Is my thought.
Any further discussion?
I'd just like to say that Josh understands that each culvert site would be different. I mean, it's your cost, and because of these large culverts, that's why the cost is up there on the culvert price versus the
we
labor
understand
cost.
and appreciate any help. We knew that you weren't obligated to anything, so any help is more than what we had. So this was kind of the original agreement was 50%, but then once you guys, on the original agreement last month, then we had to add on $10,000, so you're still saving yourself $5,000 at the end of the day, and that's what we thought from the township and the county's stance. Why are we throwing $10,000 away when it's a low-profile area in both of them? You know, it's not like a Lake Sinai idea where you're not going to drain anything here. It's just kind of you got water on both sides of the road. It's a safety hazard with the concrete on both sides. So that's what we're trying to do. So any help is appreciated.
Yep. And I believe, Dick, the statute says may participate with these projects. So, and Josh realizes that too.
Starting July, if Steve might know a little more than I would, but I think starting in July, then it'll become, before anything transpires, if a township would like county participation, it should be negotiated ahead of time so that both parties know what would be expected. Is that the way you read it, Steve? I mean, it seems like it's just a little more, get it above the board so that both parties understand. And Exactly.
Let's have roll call vote on this.
Miller,
Aye.
Krogman,
Aye.
Bartley,
Aye.
Jensen,
All right.
Pierce.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for waiting for us to decide.
Did you have more?
Madam Chairman, well,
Okay. Did anybody have any questions for Vicki on her report? Okay, Mike, you're up next. Exactly.
Good morning.
Go ahead.
Well, I think as most of you know, Irene has resigned, or retired, I should say, and she went out with surgery. So yesterday was actually her last day. So my office will be staffed by myself. I've been talking with Stacy's office to make sure that we can get some coverage going on there. I would like to fill it as soon as possible. I was kind of going through and looking at some of the other counties, you know, that are comparable size, and like Brown has 4, and we have 2. Coddington has 3, Yankton has 3, you know, and Beetle has 3, and that. So with our office just being one person, someone in there to help is kind of real high on my priority list. Anyway, I think it should be a fairly smooth transition, probably as some of you know. And right when I first came on, I was here about a year, and Irene was out for family illness for 3 months. And so it's just a matter of refreshing myself on some of the things. A few changes, but the veteran side is not an issue. Probably the most complicated part of it for me is going to be the collection side of it. And hopefully we can keep that up. I think this year's collections are going fairly well, and I think we're a little ahead of schedule. Otherwise, the number of calls coming in, you might have some people voicing some concern on that, because we're still getting about 120 calls in, about 60 a week, 10 a day, 10 to 15 a day. I still made out 80 calls out. Veterans stopping in, we had 25 in the last 2 week period, and we had 13 on the welfare side.
So I wasn't understanding that exactly right. So there are about 10 calls coming in the office per day.
10 to 15 a day.
And how many, do you have those broken down by welfare and
No,
veterans?
I do not.
Can you give us your gut on that?
Probably, without going too much detail, when I first came into the position, it was considered, I think, like 55, 45, I think, split, with welfare being the higher of the two sides. Calls coming in, I would almost have to say they're probably a little bit more on the welfare side, because we get a lot of calls in, can you help? And they give us a scenario. And there's a lot of scenarios where we cannot assist. And we are one of the places that's given, from the other 7 or 8 agencies that do assist people. And so we get their number. So we get quite a few calls on that. We do get a few calls in, on the veteran side of it. We have a lot more veterans stopping in, because when a veteran contacts me, almost, I'd say 70% of the time, it'll end up with a face-to-face interview to make sure we have all the data on the computer. And as you know, the veteran side of it is more computerized, more automated than the welfare side. And I guess as I spoke with you, the welfare side isn't as advanced, but part of it is because every county has a little different system to it. And I know Brown County spent over $100,000 trying to set up a computer system, and they were not comfortable sharing that with anyone because they said there were still a lot of bugs in it. Pennington has been working on it quite a bit, and of course, both of those places have full-time, computer science people working on it. And so for us, and the amount that we have into welfare, I think the dollars would be better spent in other areas than trying to create a program.
Are you able to tell us how much was collected on collections in welfare so far this year?
I left that number downstairs. I can't. A lot of times we don't really break that number down, because we also do the collection for court-appointed attorney fees. And that's probably one of the larger ones. I do know we had a couple payments just coming in, and it's mostly because people are, right now is a good time to buy property, and so a lot of them are trying to get in before the interest rates goes up, and so a lot more of them are probably settling now. And that's my feeling. I have nothing to base it on except for opinion.
So I'm just trying to get a feel for the traffic in the office. So if I heard you right, maybe from the welfare and maybe about 7-8 calls per day.
On the welfare side, probably 7-8 calls per day on that, and then that would be 6 to 7 on the
Right.
Because some days we have 4 or 5 calls is all, but there's other days we'll have over 20.
And then
So it's
I
a
didn't go
real
back
hard
and
target.
I didn't go back and look at prior packets, but I think this is pretty representative what's in our packet today. There were in claims, there were 5 amounts that were paid out from welfare, if I saw that right. Or maybe 5 claims not paid out, but said approved or denied.
Right.
So,
And I think this packet actually is kind of light, because usually we have, this is only one page, and I don't remember the last time we just had one page. I think most of the time,
Usually it's at least 2, sometimes 3.
So the typical number of claims that are processed, and then we'll use a 2-week period maybe because we see them every 2 weeks. So would you have an idea what that is?
I'd have to say 8 to 10.
Okay,
I would
8 to
have to
10?
guess.
Okay.
And of course, we have had packets, I know that were up to 4 pages too, so that would be 20. So
And we're just averaging.
right. So, yeah, I don't have a good answer for that.
Anybody else have any questions for Mike on any of that? And I interrupted your report, so.
Oh, no, that's fine. I just was wanting to say that, getting another person in the office is real high on my priority list.
And I do have 2 more questions, I'm sorry. First of all, on the welfare end of what a county does Tyler have a software program for that?
No, again, because of the difference in the different counties and what software they use is a lot of it.
Okay, so Tyler does not have anything?
Not to my knowledge. They've never contacted us about it anyway.
Okay.
We have it under the accounts receivable. It's not specific to welfare or whatever, but we do have it all in code. So yes.
The money part of it is tracked.
Right.
Right. What I'm talking about is the traffic side of it and
Right.
the application processes.
Thank you. I can't remember my other question.
But right now, the application process is still a manual process. And it'd be really nice if they had one like the VA has.
Okay, anybody else have any questions for Mike? Thank you.
Good morning. On June 8th, we had a truck on US Highway 14 run off into a slough, turned sideways, sideswiped a Chevrolet pickup almost head on. Thank goodness there was no serious injuries. The soybeans were discharged into the slough to allow the truck to be uprighted and then removed out. And then on June 10th, which was a Sunday morning, I got a call that the slough was bubbling. They thought there might have been a massive gas leak or something inside the slough. And I figured out what it was before I even went out there. But I went out, and it was the soybeans degassing. And it was never in the same spot twice. It was here, 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 and they bubble up, and the wind was blowing hard enough, it would just take them right out. So I'd say there's going to be some real big carp in that slough. Probably next year. And of course, DENR was notified, and I'm sure Department of Ag and all that. The Highway Patrol was the incident command on that, so our responsibility, my reporting all ended up going to DENR instead of emergency management. And the Highway Patrol shut down US 14 for a while until we got the truck out, or they got the truck out. Madera drainage, we are looking at August to bring them in. We've sent email contacts out to them to see if we can schedule a meeting in August to have Madera Township come in and discuss drainage. On June 12th, I had a budget hearing. June 13th, I went to Mitchell for a radio class. And basically all that, it was part of the SLA state and local agreement this year, but it was just a basic, here's the switch you turn on to talk on the radio. And while I was out there, I went ahead and drove around Hanson County a little bit since it was en route in preparation of our June 30th pipeline exercise. June 14th, we had a mining subcommittee joint jurisdiction meeting next to my office. Also on the 14th, we had an ordinance review with the state's attorney, Commissioner Pierce, Richard, and myself. June 18th, which was yesterday, we had a meeting with AT&T representatives about the FirstNet program. And what we're gonna end up doing is I'm gonna end up working at the sheriff's office, and we'll probably bring a county commissioner in, and we'll have AT&T come back and discuss it. It looks like it's a real good thing if you've got a incident in a major venue like SDSU football games and stuff like that. I don't know how well it would work out in the middle of the county where we do a lot of our work, but it's probably worthwhile setting up a meeting later in the year. I told them our budget hearings are over, so you're not looking at anything for 2018. I told them it would be the next year's budget cycle before we would commit to anything, if we do even commit to anything. And one thing, true, it's AT&T, and they do have some good programs for cell phone coverage and all that, but you have to realize it's only on the first responders' cell phones. It's not a county-wide situation. It would be the sheriff's office, my office. The highway department could be covered, but only what's known as an emergency situation, where if we need them for an emergency, we call in a 1-800 number. They activate their phones for 2 days, and then they shut back off. Because what FirstNet does basically is if there's a Hobo Day parade, let's say, how many cell phones do you have in the Hobo Day parade? You got a whole bunch of them in town. Well, if there's an incident, someone's throwing firecrackers and scaring horses or something, if you got FirstNet, the first responders' cell phone would be the priority net. So it's got advantages, and to me it would have some disadvantages. When it first came out, they thought it might replace radios and stuff like that. From what I've been told, it's not going to do all that. But we'll sit down with them, and we'll have a meeting with our law enforcement, and we'll bring in a county commissioner so that the commission fully understands what the situation is too. And tonight we also have a planning commission ag subcommittee meeting. Looks like we'll have pizza and ice cream. Thursday, I'm going down to Sioux Falls. There's a crisis management for school-based incidents. The invitation was also put out to the sheriff's department. I presume I'm going to it. And next Monday, June 25th, there's a CERT meeting. That's a State Emergency Response Commission meeting. I'll sit in on it over at South Dakota DOT building. June 28th, there's an airport emergency plan review scheduled. And of course, June 30th, our tabletop in Alexandria. I do plan on bringing my staff in for that. And that's coming together pretty good. We've mailed out almost 400 postcards on that, a set of postcards 2 different times, trying to get people interested in it, and all that's covered under that grant, of course. We'll be reimbursed for the majority of our expenses on that. Any questions?
Anybody have a question? I have one, but anybody want to go first? On the incident over by Arlington, where the highway patrol served as the incident commander,
Yes, ma'am.
any issues with radio communications?
Well, it was in a low spot, but my radios worked fine. Deputy Sheriff Pike was there, and he had no problem with his communications. I guess none that I observed.
Okay.
I heard Volga first responders talking to each other on where to position their trucks and all that with my radios. I guess I didn't ask the actual Volga Fire Department, who was the attending fire department there.
That isn't a location that typically has issues.
As we're going through each of these, I want to ask that question because I think we do have some spots where we've got some problems, and it's good to know if we're working or not. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, and it wasn't it was in one of the sloughs. Of course, sloughs are when you had big glaciers came and they carved out the low spot, so it's obviously a lower spot. So
right.
There may have been sporadic problems, but I had communication. The communications on my radio worked all right. So.
Anybody else? Thank you. Moving on to regular business. Item A, an action to approve Resolution 18-16, a resolution amending Resolution 17-23 and pertaining to the terms of the purchase of real property for the Brookings City and County Government Center and expenditure of funds for the purchase of the real property for the Brookings City and County Government Center. And would we
Make the
have
motion to approve.
we have a second?
Second.
And would one of you that's serving on joint powers just want to say for the listening public what it is that we're doing here?
Go ahead, doesn't matter.
All right, well, we're purchasing the property directly south of this particular building for a parking lot. We made some purchase agreements that we had to change slightly regarding one of the properties that we were exchanging as part of the purchase agreement to address some issues with setbacks and on the lot. And through negotiations, we came up with an agreement that was satisfactory to both the city and the county in the joint powers board. That was then presented to the city council at their meeting last Tuesday, I believe it was, and it was approved. And now it's before us to approve those changes to the document so that we can come to closing.
We're moving utilities.
Yeah, we're moving some utility lines just to help make that lot more usable.
And the cost is going to be $15,043.49. The county's going to pay 52%.
That's
And the
correct.
city's going to pay 48%. Did anybody do the math on what our share is on that? Do you have that, Stacy? $15,043.49. And then the question is, where does that come out of our budget?
It's about $7,800. That would come out of the building fund.
Okay, we're good. Any further discussion on this issue? And we'll do a roll call vote.
Krogman,
Abstain.
Bartley,
Aye.
Jensen,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Pierce.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item B, action to approve Resolution 18-17, a plat of lots 20A and 21A of Elmar Lake Hendricks Edition in Government Lot 6 of Section 28, Township 112 North, Range 47 West of the 5th Prime Meridian, Brookings County, South Dakota. We have a motion.
Second.
Mr. Hill, would you like to?
Yep, this plat was heard at our June 5th Planning and Zoning meeting and was approved with a unanimous vote and sent to this board with a recommendation that you approve it also.
Good question.
Yes, sir.
What, the change in 21A and
They're straightening some lines up to make it an easier lot to build on.
okay, so there's a little dotted line. Is that where the original of this one right
Typically,
there?
the little dotted line would be.
Property line vacated by the plat, is that?
Yeah, that's.
Okay, so that's where the original one was, and now they're gonna move it over to where
I
where
believe
it
so.
meets 20A.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
gotcha.
Yeah, this is, if you used to see the actual image of this particular one, this is a real hilly type thing, and
But they're not missing any land.
They're not
Basically
missing any-
keeping the two, they're just shifting them over.
just shifting the lines over so they can put a house.
And this
on
is
the property.
on Lake Hendricks, correct?
Yes, it is.
Any further discussion? Call the roll.
Bartley,
Aye.
Jensen,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Krogman,
Aye.
Pierce.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item C, action to approve Resolution 18-18, a plat of Lot 1 Moan Edition in the southeast quarter and the southwest quarter of Section 28, Township 112 North, Range 47 West of the 5th Prime Meridian, Brookings County, South Dakota.
Move approval.
Second.
Mr. Hill.
And once again, this was heard on the June 5th Planning and Zoning meeting, unanimously approved by the Planning and Zoning Board and sent to this board with a recommendation that you approve it.
Is this on Lake Hendricks also?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so there's some frontage there, that's on the second pages there. Okay.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, this is not on the lake itself. This is
No, that is, but the
Lake
property,
Hendricks Township.
but the property that is coming out of the 155 acres
I believe it is.
portion of is on Lake Hendricks.
And this one has an extremely long driveway. That's what you see.
See that? I'm guessing the road is a minimum maintenance, the one next to it, so.
Call the roll.
Jensen,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Krogman,
Aye.
Bartley,
Aye.
Pierce.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item D, action to approve Agreement 18-67, an independent contractor agreement between Brookings County and Southpaw Defense LLC.
Move approval.
Before
Oh,
that,
sorry.
this morning in front of you, there was a new version of that contract placed on your desks this morning, and Steve can probably talk more to that. There was one change made yesterday.
The only change that was made to the agreement was section 5.0, and that's in response to a question or concern raised by Mike Kilmer. We had originally indemnification language in there, and Mike thought that with the inclusion of the insurance requirement that he was not comfortable with the indemnification, and so I found or developed a substitute paragraph which I'm comfortable with, which basically says that the parties are responsible for their own negligence, and indemnification maybe is an additional safeguard or simplification of the responsibilities, but here basically the parties are responsible for their own conduct, and that's also pretty customary in agreements, so I'm comfortable with that language.
So I'm going to go back, and the motion would be this agreement as opposed to the one in the back.
Correct.
Okay. And did we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item E, action to approve agreement 18-68, a contract for a geotechnical investigation between Brookings County and the South Dakota Department of Transportation.
So moved.
Second.
Dick, did you want to say anything about this?
This will be the bridge on the Sinai Road that we received the grant for, and the DOT will be in the neighborhood, so this will be a much reduced cost of what it would normally cost if they came and made a special trip.
Any further conversation? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item F, action to approve agreement 18-69, an application for occupancy of right-of-way of county highway made by Sioux Valley Energy.
So moved.
Second.
Anything on this, Dick? Any discussion by the commission? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item G, action to approve agreement 18-70, an application for occupancy of right-of-way of county highways made by Sioux Valley Energy.
Move approval.
Second.
Anything, Dick? Any discussion by the commission? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item H, action to approve agreement 18-71, an application for occupancy of right-of-way of county highways made by Sioux Valley Energy.
So moved.
Second.
Anything from you, Dick?
No.
Discussion by commission? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item I, action to approve agreement 18-72, an application for occupancy of right-of-way of county highways made by Sioux Valley Energy.
Move approval.
Second.
Anything on this one, Dick?
No, they're all just upgrades of current services.
Discussion by the commission? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item J, action to award bids for the 2018 preservation grants to BX Civil and Construction, Inc. of Del Rapids, South Dakota.
Move approval.
Second.
And on that move approval, was the approval contingent upon the South Dakota Department of Transportation concurrence with the bid recommendation and bid amount? That's part of the motion.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Dick?
The reason this came about was just for the grant purposes. If you remember last week at our budget hearing, I brought up the way they wanted to handle preservation grants, that the county will pay for everything up front and then we'll submit reimbursement to the state DOT for them to pay us back. As part of the grant process, in these preservation grants, the state must get approval for, or give approval of what the bid tab turned out. In other words, just making sure that everything was done and it will meet the needs of the grant application of the project. So basically, when they see it and they review it and everything makes sense, they'll concur, and then we would award it. If we award it before they would do that, there's always a potential that they could have ruffled feathers and feel hurt, and they might say, well, we can't approve this for the grant because you've already awarded it. You should never award anything till after the state gives their blessing. So basically, and also this gives the contractor the ability to realize that, you know, they are the winner or the loser, and then once the state concurs, we will have a timely window to get back the bonds and all that to the non-winners, and it just speeds everything up.
Any questions for Dick? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item K, action to approve an automatic supplement for unanticipated expenses incurred and reimbursement made to Brookings County in the amount of $661.20 to GL line 101-4-211-4263, receipt number 423251 for reimbursement for the patrol car accident.
Move approval.
Second.
Any discussion?
So are we getting this money back, or?
Stacy?
Yes, this is money that we receive back as an insurance reimbursement. And so then Marty asks for this money then to be placed back into his budget.
Is that what, I mean, it says, first when I read it, unanticipated expenses incurred.
Because we had an unanticipated expense incurred when the car was wrecked.
Right.
And so then this is our reimbursement. So Marty's already paid for the repairs. This is the insurance reimbursement. So then that goes back into his budget to kind of offset some of the expenses that he's already incurred.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item L, action to approve request to fill vacancy for a general maintenance worker in Commission and Sheriff's Department.
Move. Second.
Any discussion on this?
Our current maintenance worker was hired as a full-time correctional officer in the jail. So I'm losing
Which
him
wasn't
to
very
the
nice.
sheriff's office, which is fantastic for him, not so much for me. But in his defense, Tom also worked over in the 50% of his time was spent over at the sheriff in jail too, doing work over there. So they're losing him too. So we're going to advertise this and get someone else hired.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item M, action to approve a request to fill vacancy for temporary truck driver in the Highway Department.
Move approval.
Second.
Anything you want to say about that, Dick?
No, we just pretty much the same we discussed in budget.
Any discussion by the commission? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item N, an action to authorize the chair to sign the 2018 NACO credentials voting form.
Move approval.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion. Any opposed? Motion passes. Item O, action to declare the following property as surplus to be donated, scrapped, or disposed of. Number 1, a Maudlin tack trailer 300-gallon tack tank donated to Dual County. Number 2, 24-inch by 20-inch corrugated metal pipe to be donated to Kirby Cemetery. Number 3, diesel pump scrap metal. Number 4, 2 plank benches 10-foot by 24-foot disposed of. And number 5, microwave disposed of.
Move approval.
Second.
Any questions or discussions? What happened to the things that it says disposed of?
They went to the landfill, I believe.
To the landfill?
Yep.
Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Commission Department Director report.
The commission, as part of my report, you did receive a petition from the city for annexation of property that was attached to my report and included in your packet. That's coming up. There's a public hearing next Tuesday at 6 p.m. here in the chambers. A couple other things that I handed out this morning, the surplus cash analysis. Vicki already visited with you about that as part of her report, and you can kind of see the comparisons. You can see the comparisons there. Like you said, it's down some from last year, but I think last year was kind of extraordinary, so I think we're in pretty good shape. Also, I set on your desk a copy of the letter also that Vicki spoke about that we had sent to this State Elections Board for their meeting that was held yesterday, and Vicki told you the outcome of that. We do have, I think also all of you received a postcard in front of you for the tabletop exercise on June 30th in Aurora County. I think another invitation was set in front of you this morning. Hanson County. Sorry. Why was I thinking it was Aurora County? Hanson County. They're in the same general area. Hanson County.
South Dakota, right?
A couple other things that I need to discuss. I'll go through dates quick. There's a couple different retirement parties for outgoing city manager Jeff Weldon. This Thursday and next Thursday. You can see those on your schedule. The STIP meeting, we discussed this at the meeting, I believe at the last meeting, the STIP review at 1st District in Watertown next Tuesday, the 26th. 4th of July offices will be closed that Wednesday, and July 18th is the 1st District annual picnic. That's at Memorial Park up in Coddington County, and that starts at 6 o'clock. A couple other things that we need to discuss. Commissioner Pierce had brought it to my attention that during the last BEDC meeting, there was some talk about giving the county an option to appoint an alternate to that board and then give that alternate voting privileges. We'd be looking at doing that as part of the board appointments at the beginning of the year, so that wouldn't come into play until 2019. But this would be in the in the chance that the person appointed to that board isn't able to attend, somebody can go in their place and still be a full voting member. So if there's any other discussion to be had there, otherwise I'll put that on as discussion to be had during that appointment process in January.
What happened, if you recall, is the BEDC quarterly meeting is this coming Wednesday, and I couldn't be there. Commissioner Bartley agreed to attend in my stead, and they sent back an email and said, had we considered both the city and SDSU have it set up so if their person who gets to vote can't come, there's an assigned alternate that gets to vote. And they wanted to know if we wanted to set something up similar to that. And I think that might be a good idea.
Okay. And then Vicki and I have been working on the budget stuff after following our budget hearings last week, and we still have a few things that we need to do before we think we've got that provisional budget finalized. But due to July meetings with people being gone, we discussed maybe setting a special budget meeting to get together. I can't imagine that it would take more than a couple of hours probably just to go over the changes that were made. So I guess if you want to set that now, looking at everybody's schedule.
When are you thinking?
I would like to wait until, maybe the mid to end of next week at the earliest, but then after that, I think we can look at any time, too. And I don't know, getting around that 4th of July, that's hard with vacations and people being away, but 27th, I know we have a joint jurisdiction meeting that morning. That's with Commissioners Bartley and Piercer at that, but
Thursday at noon.
you leave the 27th and you are back on the 4th, okay? And I know the end of the week of the 4th, there's people that are out with vacations, so
Some of this group?
yes. Well, yes. Commissioner.
Okay. What about Monday the 9th? Anybody have conflict with Monday the 9th? And I leave on the 10th, so.
Like the 9th.
How about,
What time? And do you want to meet here in this room or next door in the community room, or does it matter, whichever one's available?
I think that from 10 until noon that I'm in a hearing. But other than that, my day's free. But if we're going to do it in the morning and we
Do it in
think
the
of,
morning.
pardon me?
Morning.
If we're going to do it in the morning, could we start at 8 instead of 8:30 and plan on being done by 10?
That works? Yes?
Okay.
Is everybody shaking their head yes? Okay.
8 o'clock, July 9th, budget hearing.
And then some updates on the Brookings County Outdoor Adventure Center. I am very excited to announce that we do have a director hired. She starts a week next Monday on the 25th, Kristen Heismeyer. She and I have been in contact off and on, and I'm kind of in the process of already getting her kind of up to speed and answering some questions, and hopefully we'll be able to hit the ground running on Monday with that. The Elkton School District did come on June 8th and brought about 6 or 7 of their youth over, and it was part of their Park and Rec program. And they did archery and then headed over to the nature park next door and did some geocaching. I did attend the Pistol Range Committee meeting last week, June 12th. They discussed kind of their flow of information from that committee to the RSOs. We're having ongoing concerns with the HVAC system out there. I know we have been in contact with Commissioners Krogman and Jensen about humidity issues out there. We're trying to get some things addressed. It sounds like this isn't a new development. It sounds like they've been having some of these issues in past summers, but it hasn't always been as bad as it is this summer. So we're working on it. Sean and I are working on that, trying to get ahead of it, basically.
Is that covered by our contract? Don't we have a maintenance contract on that?
Some of it is, some of it isn't. Part of the problem is if they come now, it basically isn't. They come every month to check things, but we're talking 90% humidity in the gun range. The glass that's between the lanes is getting condensation on it, and then the viewing window is getting condensation on it. 90% humidity. The cardboard for the targets is about falling apart in there. And it's not comfortable. I mean, at times the temperature is comfortable, but at times it's not either. And when the humidity is that high, it's not conducive to. It's an issue for the building. It's an issue for our workers. It's an issue. It's a customer service issue. It's a number of things. So we're trying to actually get them here sooner rather than later. We don't want to have to wait, but they can. And basically what we're hearing is that their system appears to be working. They're not getting any warnings or showing any issues when they remote in. So we're working on it. So, but you may see a bill if they need to get here and do some fixes. So part of that Pistol Range Committee too, they formed a subcommittee to discuss kind of how to improve upon the entire customer service experience or customer experience specific to the gun range out there. They'll be coming back and making some recommendations to that full pistol range committee, and then I'm assuming that those will trickle down then to the advisory board too. So I think they're meeting this week. That subcommittee is meeting this week, so they are working on that. That same evening, I thought there was an archery range committee, but there was not a meeting that night, so I didn't get to go to that. But that same night that we were there, a group from Bellbrands actually had a catered meal brought out from Whiskey Creek, and then they did an archery event out there in the archery range. Adam Leonard's, one of our part-time helpers, assisted them, and they did some archery games, and I was listening in there while I was waiting to find out if there was indeed an archery range committee meeting, and they were laughing and having a great time and are talking about coming back out again. So it sounds like that went really, really well. On June 13th, I met with Tanaya Bethke. She's a division staff specialist for education with the GFNP. And I also met with Stacy Clausen with the Dakota Nature Park. And that meeting was to discuss, we have an intern, Paige O'Farrell, that is working with both the OAC and the Dakota Nature Park during these summer months. The agreement, which is for GFNP, is paying for a portion of this gal's summer internship, and the city is paying a portion. But she's supposed to spend 50% of her time kind of at the nature park, fishing, that sort of thing, and then 50% is hunting, which really has to, kind of centers around the BCOAC. So she's can spend about half of her time there. So I'm working with Stacy to get Stacy Clausen at the nature park to come up with some programs and ideas on how we can utilize Paige. Paige actually has run programs at the outdoor campus in Sioux Falls. She comes with a lot of knowledge, archery knowledge, BB guns, some other things. And then on Friday last week, I actually met Paige and Stacy Clausen. Some of our part-timers came too, so introductions were made. And Paige is going to start this week before Kristen starts as the new director next week. She has some great programming ideas. She wants to do like a circuit event where so people sign up and they'll spend some time doing archery. They may do BB guns or 22s at the range. They'll go out to the nature park and do fishing and kayaking, and it's all during the day, and they'll spend 45 minutes, an hour doing different things. So we're really trying to get some ideas, and Paige has a lot of great ideas on how to get some of these programs in place and get those promoted and get people signed up to do that and get people out there and using the facility. So I'm kind of excited to see where that will go this summer. So Father's Day event, I haven't had a chance yet to visit with any of the part-time staff to see how that went out there, but they had an archery event on Sunday, Father's Day. And then the next advisory board meeting is coming up on Monday, so Larry and Ryan, if you have anything for the agenda, let me know. I need to get that out here by the end of this week. But Kristen, the new director, comes on board that day, and she is aware that there's a meeting. She'll plan to be there. I'll plan to be there as well. So things are moving along.
Well, Kristen, now her position, she's department head for that, right? Will she come here and report, or will she come at least on July 2nd so we can meet her, or what's our...
July 3rd, yes.
Excuse me, July 3rd.
Yep, I'll visit with her and make sure that she's here for that meeting on July 3rd. And, and I'll explain to her how I give updates like this at each commission meeting. And maybe she can't do that each meeting, but even if it's every couple, 3 weeks, come like the rest of our department heads and give an update on what's going on out there. I think that would be a good thing to do. So. And that's all I have, unless you have any other questions for me.
Any other questions? State's Attorney's Office report. Commissioner Jensen.
12th, 13th, we had budget meetings. On the 14th, attended the jail expansion historic preservation meeting, and I did have a couple compliments to the highway department from some motorcycle riders. They appreciated the ditches starting to be mowed. Little safety deal there for the, and that's all I have.
On June 7th, I attended the first district meeting. We reviewed the 2017 audit report. We looked at mid-year activity, and we approved the 2019 work plan and budget. June 12 and 13, I attended budget hearings. June 14th, I attended the historic preservation meeting. And then at 7, I attended the weed board meeting. We discussed equipment, personnel, and the progress of the work.
All right, budget meetings on 12th and 13th, and historic preservation hearing on the 14th. That's what I have.
My report is the same as Commissioner Miller's, June 7th, 1st District, 12th, 13th budget meetings, and 14th historic preservation, so ditto that report, same.
On June 11th, I went to the Prairie Nightingale event out at the hospital, and again, that was a good event. Attended the budget hearings on the 12th and 13th, went to the PPCC POD meeting on the 14th, and the one thing I'd bring back from that meeting is there was discussion about the fact that the Department of Health is projecting that there will be an upswing in tick and West Nile related diseases in South Dakota this summer. So everybody needs to be watching out for that. On the 14th, did ordinance review with State's Attorney Terry Nesvold and the staff from Planning and Zoning. I did want to make a comment on the petition for annexation that Stacy had as part of her report. And City Planning and Zoning, whatever the first Tuesday was in this month, this was in front of City Planning and Zoning. The annexation passed. There was at that same time a request for rezoning of that area that's being annexed. It's an L-shaped area that's right along South Main, right across from River Ridge. And it was controversial. The request was to be rezoned to a B3 district. There was some public testimony against B3 and what would be the appropriate type of business activity to be zoned in that area. That'll be back in front of City Planning and Zoning on July 3rd again. It ended up being tabled, and that'll be coming back forward. I don't think there's any problem with the annexation, which we're interested in, but the zoning was an issue.
In my ignorance, what does B3 allow or not allow?
The main difference is contractor shops and storage units.
And that's what he's got there is a storage unit. Okay.
So we'll see how all of that goes, but that's why that ended up going the direction that it did. And then that would be my report. I would entertain a motion to move into executive session in accordance with SDCL 1-25-2, subpart 1, personnel.
Approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're in executive session.